Hey, I'm here with Samson Jagoras, Northern Colorado entrepreneur, business leader, and all-around amazing human. I'm super excited to hear his story and share all of his wisdom with you guys today. Check it out. Hey, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Would you make sure to please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here, and please share this episode with somebody whose life it will make better. Hey, just want to give a big shout out to one of our sponsors, Imprint Digital. If you're a small business owner, one of the things that you need to navigate to be successful is all things online and digital in terms of marketing and your messaging. Imprint Digital, they're the real deal. They are the professionals and they know this world inside and out. Make sure to visit their website at imprint-digital.com. A big shout out and thank you to one of our sponsors, M&D Painting and Roofing. M&D was actually founded by my wife, Emily, and I back in 2005. And for the last 2 decades, we've been here in Northern Colorado of one of the leaders in residential and commercial repainting, as well as most recently installing residential roofs. So if you need to paint, re-roof, you got hit by a hailstorm, we can take care of whatever your home needs from top to bottom. You can find us on the web at mandepainting.com. Samson Jagoras.
Hey,
welcome.
buddy.
What's good to have you here.
Yeah, glad to finally do it.
It's been a while, man. We've been busy. We've had crazy summer, a lot going on.
You've been traveling like a maniac.
Too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think too much.
It takes 7 days for me to be out of whack. You were like on the road for a month or maybe more, maybe.
Yeah, it was Spain with Haley in April, and then Kenya. Did a Kenya trip with Riley. Emily and I went to Hawaii for the first time right before it caught on fire.
Oh, man.
But yeah, just each trip we had, getting back, there wasn't enough time to really get a reset. And and then we took the guys over to Spain on the hike just a couple weeks ago. So that was amazing. But I'm done traveling, I think, man. I'm ready to call it a.
Aren't you going on the road next week though?
That'll be a quick one though.
Okay.
I think in comparison to everything that we had done through the spring and summer, it's no big deal.
Yeah, something about getting out of your routine that just we're creatures of habit. It's great to break that, but something about getting back to center, exercise, food, business, your people, your team, your connections, your community. Yeah. That's super important.
Well, man, you and I are wired so much the same. Like our stories connected about a decade ago. You were working at a local marketing company. And we met, and just through our journey, man, just business, entrepreneurship, fatherhood, being husbands and business leaders. Like you've got so much wisdom. We've talked so much offline. I've been on your podcast, Pain to Profits, and you just got tons of wisdom to share, man. But I'm really interested just to hear your story about like where you came from, how you came up, and what drives you to what you do today. Because I know we've talked about this, but I just think it's got tons of value for people that are tuning in today.
I'll start with a distinct memory. So I remember I grew up in Los Angeles, California, LA County. So we lived all over from Culver City to Alhambra to Pasadena to Altadena. And we lived in Alhambra. It was kind of the hood at the time. It's not so much the hood anymore, but it was kind of run at the time by like the 18th Street gang. But I'm a little, 3-5-year-old kid. Like I don't know anything different. And I loved Michael Jackson. Like this was like when Michael Jackson didn't get weird, right? I was like,
this is before he was weird.
Yeah, this was imagine little Samson, right? He's got a white V-neck t-shirt on. He's got some black slacks on, and he's got the high socks, but then he's got skateboard shoes on, and he's just skating up and down the driveway. So for me, a lot of just like the mindset growing up as a California kid, raised on skateboarding and like punk rock music, I think that's a lot of what gave me just this relentless mindset. Like to land one trick as like a skateboard kid, it takes a lot of reps and it hurts. You're getting gashed in the knee, you're falling, you're rolling ankles, and you get up and you go do it again. And you go do it again. And you go do it again. And you're just so obsessed with landing the trick that nothing else really matters. And so I think, that's just a success attribute. Drive is probably one of those things that takes entrepreneurs and leaders very, very far because it's not all sunshine and rainbows all the time. But anyways, I grew up playing baseball, soccer, loved punk rock music, loved loud, heavy music, and some hip hop. I mean, you can't be in LA and not listen to hip hop.
Right.
And then my freshman year, I discovered football. I never wanted to play football. I didn't really know that much about football, but I think I was attracted to just the lifestyle of just training, lifting weights, the camaraderie, and probably girls, right? Like I wanted to be jacked for the girls, right? And so I showed up to my first practice to play football, and they said, "You look like a linebacker." I'm like, "That's cool. I don't have any idea what that is." They're like, "You just got to line up over here. You're just going to hit this guy when he runs downhill." So we're doing angle tackle drill. So I line up, I smack this kid as hard as I possibly can. The chin strap goes in his mouth, snot bubbles in his nose, and I jump up a little bit timid, like, "Oh man, I just really hurt this kid." And the coaches are going bananas. They're like, "Let's go."
You had it. You just had it.
That was the moment that I was like, I need to do this for as long as I possibly could. So at about 14, that's what distinctly kind of changed my trajectory. But to kind of backtrack, prior to that, when I was in about fourth grade, my mom pulled me out of traditional school, Catholic school, and she started homeschooling me. So you tack on being like a sports kid, skater kid, punk rock kid. Now I'm a homeschool kid. So at fourth grade, basically, my whole life revolved around how quickly do I get my school done so I can go skate as much as I possibly could. So I had always, from my fourth grade to my freshman year in high school, had just really been used to just like making my own schedule, doing things on my own terms, walking to my own drum, and organizing my business life in a way that served me to go do the stuff that I really wanted to go do. Yep. Then I found football, applied the same kind of concept to that, which was, how do I do this for as long as I possibly can? My days consisted of training before school, doing school, training after school, right? I didn't party, I didn't drink, I didn't do any of that because I was going to go play in college. That's all that mattered. Then fast forward to my senior year, and I don't have any offers. I'm all conference, our team was pretty dang good, and I had no scholarship offers, and I didn't know how I was going to pay for school. So I reached out to a mentor from the high school, and he said, "Dude, you're good enough to go play. Let me call my coach at a D2 school." The school was called Western New Mexico. 2 weeks later, I'm on a recruiting trip out to Western New Mexico in a little tiny town called Silver City. We called it Silver Shitty. It was really bad. It was not great. And
not the top of the list, right? No, selection.
Not what I envisioned when I thought I'm going to go play college football, right? My high school stadium was bigger than the stadium there, right? And 30 days later, I had a scholarship. So I was like, I'm in. No questions asked. I'm going to play football. My school's paid for. Ended up moving to New Mexico, Silver City, New Mexico. And then by my sophomore year, I knew, hey man, this is not what I wanted to do. Like, this is too small for me. I was already the big man on campus, right? True freshman linebacker, averaging most tackles per game, like all that stuff. And we're just playing these garbage teams. Yeah. And so there was no like challenge for me. So going into my sophomore season, I knew that I was going to leave. And the season before my sophomore season, I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm like 225, around like a 4.5. I'm like, man, this is it. I'm going to have a killer season. And on a breakaway drill in the middle of summer training session, I planted off my left leg and pop, 3-inch by 2-inch tear in the middle of my hamstring. And so, one of the things that I've subscribed to, and I've talked about quite a bit, is just like true greatness in life is when everybody expects you to respond a certain way and then you don't. Nobody would have challenged me if I said, I tore my hamstring. Like, that's why I didn't go D1, right? They're like, oh man, you played D2 football. You have full scholarship. School's paid for. Like, you're the man, right? And I just couldn't sleep at night if that was, my personal dialogue would not allow me to do that. And so I cut 20 pounds. I swam in a pool all summer, showed up to camp, had a 75% healed hamstring, and went on to have the greatest season of my college career, period. So the lesson in that is like, you're never going to be 100%. Like, nobody has designed you. No, there's no perfect scenario. There's never a right time to get married. There's never a right time to have kids. There's never a right time to take the leap, start the job, have the hard conversation, whatever it may be. You'll probably be 75%, and that's enough. So then I went in, had the greatest season of my career, transferred to the University of Colorado on a walk-on commitment, and showed up to camp. There were 7 guys at my tryout. 3 of us made the team. And by the end of that spring, I was the last guy standing. The other 2 guys quit because they didn't want it, right? They were already going to school there. They already had their school paid for. Like, mom and dad were backing them up. For me, it was like, I'm either getting on scholarship or my butt's going back to junior college, and I'll play football there and I'll just finish out school. Mm-hmm. That's how committed I was. It was a burn the boats kind of moment, right? Like, there was no going back for me. So I lived in this crappy apartment off campus. I had no car. I washed my cell phone the first week, so I couldn't touch it. I could turn it on the charger and I could talk, but I couldn't carry a phone with me anywhere. I would wake up, 4 a.m. to train, to be prepared, because we still had to go to spring ball. And I remember showing up to the very first spring training, and it was the whole team. Joel Klatt, who's now an announcer for like ESPN, he was the starting quarterback, and we had to run stadiums that day. And he was the only dude that beat me. And the only reason he beat me was because every time I got up there, he was like, "Get behind me. I'm the leader," But I was
like,
you
can't show me up.
Yeah, but I was more conditioned than he was. And then on the other side of that, like really difficult transition of, basically a year of just waking up. My world was really small. I didn't party. I ate top ramen. I didn't have many friends. I had a girlfriend at the time. And I had practically nothing, but my life was like so good. Every day was war, show up to practice. I'm trying to rip kids' heads off. Right. And they're like, "What's the matter with you?" "I'm trying to take your scholarship. That's what's the matter with me." Yeah. But in that event, my girlfriend and I were just on different pages. She was a sorority girl, wanted to party. So we went our separate ways. And then 6 months later, I met my wife. And that's kind of like where the next part of my story picks up, and then how you and I actually collided, which was her dad was a commodities trader. I had no idea what I was going to do, but at least to make real money, that I was going to get into like strength and conditioning when I graduated, because I got a degree in physiology. And then I walked into a stocks and commodities brokerage about 2 days after I graduated with a degree in physiology. 3 months later, I was a newly crowned broker. Dow Jones fell 777 points in a single day. And then in the middle of all that, we launched the marketing company. And then boom, that's where we eventually met.
And that's when you and I connected.
Exactly.
So going back to those football days, you talk about that doing something that people don't expect you to do, right? Like he's going to go right. He's going to go this way. That's what everybody else does. And you go left. Was that learned? Do you feel like that was ingrained in you? Did you have an example of that?
Man,
Where
I always
do you think that comes from?
It's a chip on the shoulder mentality. Mm-hmm. My dad was 13, his mom passed away and his dad left. So my dad had been on his own since he was 13, which pros and cons to that. The pro, he always had a chip on his shoulder, right? He was very independent, didn't need anybody to tell him what to do, worked his ass off, was a blue collar guy, did everything right, decided he was going to do it different than his dad did. So he always instilled that in me, that like hard work beats talent. And I always just felt like I had something to prove, Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but I just always felt like there was some voice, even though nobody said it, there was somebody out there that was like, "He can't do it." Mm-hmm. And that you want to motivate me, tell me I can't do something, or tell me that I'm not capable of it. You'll get the exact opposite response from me. And so I've always had that in everything that I did. As I've gotten older, I've been able to like temper that and realize that like that's my ego. And just because you're successful doesn't mean you don't wrestle with imposter syndrome. But the concept is, just because you're tall and good at basketball doesn't mean you're great. Just because you come from a wealthy family and have had success doesn't mean you're great. There's a difference between being famous and being great. And great is doing something that nobody actually expects you could do. Like Muggsy Bogues, right? 5'5", the dude could dunk. He was a top NBA player. People would have never thought that this guy could play in the league. He did something that was uncommon. That made him great.
Yeah.
Right? Kobe Bryant, right? The dude was world champion, and the dude would wake up at 4 and shoot the most basic shots on repeat. That's what made him great, because nobody would have expected him to do those things, Mm-hmm. So to me, it's just the willingness to do the uncommon, unexpected things for an unreasonable amount of time, so that by doing so, it would be unreasonable for you to not be successful, is actually what greatness is. And that's the gap. People want the end result, the status, the fame that comes with all that, but they don't want to do the work.
I see that a lot. I see that in so many people. We had somebody in here on the show, and we were talking a lot about that. It's like they want this, they want to be there, they see the success, they're here. And do you think people don't realize what that is, or they realize it and don't want to do it, or they take a step into it, get an ass kicking, and then go, "Whoa, I think I'm just going to go back to being comfortable"?
I heard a great quote the other day. It said, "Embarrassment is the price of entry." So most people are unwilling to put themselves out there and look like foolish. Mm-hmm. because as soon as they look foolish, they get really insecure. And that is literally the difference. Like, you want to start something new, you want to break into some new industry or make a career pivot or start a business, be prepared to look foolish and accept that, because that's the price of entry.
What's been the foolishness that you've seen? I'm thinking now that you say that, right? Because I love that quote. I'm thinking back to all of the ventures and things that I stepped into. I'm like, ooh, yeah, like jujitsu. Man, I got owned on the mats. I picked a fight with a kid like half my age, half my size. I'm like, I got this.
Yep.
I got this. I'll do some weights. And he just rolled me up. I was humbled quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that happens a lot. We make a lot of assumptions going into the situation. I think with anything that we're doing, there's usually like 5 ways that you get into something, right? One, you're just born into it, right? So you come from a family that does jujitsu, as an example. Or you spend 7 to 10 years in the industry, right? Or you just go learn through the school of hard knocks. Or you find a mentor. Or 5, it's typically a combination of all those things, right? And so I think that 7 to 10 years is probably the big time horizon that most people don't want to accept, because they want to be great at it or good at it now. And Tony Robbins says that we grossly overestimate what we can do in a year, but we undervalue 3 to 5 years of consistent hard work. And so that's the difference. But I don't think people have perspective on how short their life is, while simultaneously how long it is.
Yeah.
Right? Because like in your 20s, you're kind of an idiot. You don't know enough yet. In your 30s, you're starting to figure out who you are, right? And if you look at like some of the great entrepreneurs who started businesses, and most of them are like Vera Wang. She's actually my favorite. Vera Wang, who's one of the world's most famous designers, she didn't even design her first piece of clothing until she was 39 years old.
Yeah, that's wild. I saw a post yesterday when I was showing like Ray Kroc and all of these people that had started these massive empires, and it wasn't until their 40s.
Exactly.
A lot of them.
And if you actually look at the statistics on the vast majority of entrepreneurs and companies that get started in this country, they're people between the ages of 30 and 40. Why? Because they've been professionals for at least 7 to 10 years. They now have beat their head against the wall enough times. They probably have some mentors and people in their life. They feel confident in going and taking that leap. And so, but if you stop and you think about that, how long do you think you could work till, Matt?
I was talking to Emily about this the other day, because I'm 42, and I'm like, oh man, I reflect on 20 years and everything that we've done and where we're at. And I always feel like it's not good enough, because that's just part of how I grew up, right? I think everybody does, whether they
you got to have
say it
some
or not.
Insufficiency.
And she's like, Matt, she goes, you're going to work till the day you die. You're never going to stop working. I don't think I'll ever stop. I mean, I love what I do. So I'm doing it as long as I can.
So how long do you think you can work? 80?
I'll work till the day I die. I think that I don't believe in that traditional, hey, save up till 65, do the retirement.
Let me change the question.
Yeah.
When you're 80, what do you think your like wellness aptitude, physically, mentally?
Physically?
Yeah.
Physically, if I keep training jujitsu the way I'm training, everything's going to be broken. Seriously. I hope that I'm mentally clear and sound. I think it's a direct result of how I take care of myself moving into these next years. But I mean, I'm definitely not going to be as healthy and on top of things I assume as now I am.
Right. So at the very least, you think you could work to 65 to 80, somewhere in that realm. So if you don't get started till you're 40, you still have 40 years to play the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we're sometimes so focused on the destination that we like forget that the journey is the destination.
Yes.
And it's because we apply the wrong framework to the game that we're playing. Meaning, I love game theory, right? There's finite games and there's infinite games. So finite game says there's winners and there's losers at the beginning or at the end of every game. But an infinite game says there are no winners and losers, and the only rule of the game is to keep the game going as long as possible. People will come and go from the game.
Yes.
But just because Matt's further ahead than me doesn't mean that Matt's beating me. Just Matt's playing his own game. The game is infinite, right? The game is actually who can stay in the game the longest, right? And so when you apply like finite game context to your life or your goals or whatever it might be, it's defeating. But when you apply infinite game like rules to your life and in your game, it's actually very encouraging, because you're like, I still got a lot. I'm just getting started. I got a lot of time. And just because Matt's winning doesn't mean I'm losing. That has nothing to do with it.
Yeah. How do you think the social plays into all that? So you mentioned something I really want to dig into is imposter syndrome. And we were talking a little bit before we launched, and we talk offline all the time, just about social media and where it's going and what kind of content's being put out there. But I see so much of the get rich quick garbage. You watch these things and then you immediately feel this lack of being enough and this lack of, I'm not where this guy is. And this guy's got the program or the 7 steps or whatever. But how do you think that all ties in and plays together with like the direction of social media, that imposter syndrome, and how you stay on track with that? Because I feel like I see a lot of people get tied up and distracted in that space, and they're just bouncing from thing to thing to thing and never giving it enough time.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think and not to say that I don't see that stuff and sometimes feel for a second like, damn, that person's killing it, like what am I doing wrong? Does everybody just have millions of dollars and I don't, what's happening here? So some of that is just, you got to have enough wherewithal to discern what's actually happening. You're being marketed to, right? Yeah. And they're playing into the weakest parts of the human condition, which is everybody wants the easy button. And so if anything you're seeing is the easy button, then it's not reality.
Yeah.
Literally nothing that anybody has ever done, an incredible marriage, raised incredible children, built an amazing business, has there been an easy button. Yep. So that's your first red flag. They'd just be like, why am I worried about what this person's doing? Right. Because it's not realistic. But I think if more people took themselves to dark places, like intentionally suffered and put themselves in, we'll call it eustress, like positive, stressful situations. Training is one of those things. Yeah. Dieting is one of those things. Building a business is one of those things. Learning something new is one of those things, right? That they would quickly realize that there is just one secret sauce to being successful. And it's just, like I said, doing something for so long that it would be unreasonable that you would not be successful. Yeah. And there's no other secret sauce to it. There's not like an easy button or a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 perfect plan. There's some strategies and playbooks that can help you get there, but truthfully, you cannot escape the work, and people want to escape the work. So if you spent more time in other parts of your life that you do have control over, going to those dark places and callousing the mind, that you would be less influenced by those posts that somebody posts. Because you and I see them and be like, look at this schmuck, Well,
we talk about all the strategy. Oh, look at that hook that guy's got. It's like,
we're
this guy full of crap. Maybe, I don't know.
But that was a good hook, though.
It was a good hook, yeah. Well, but then I wonder with that stuff, too. It's like if you made that much money buying Section 8 real estate, you're the Section 8 real estate guy or whatever you're pushing. Why did you create the program to tell everybody how to do it? Yep. It feels like there's more money in the program than whatever the thing you're teaching about is.
Yeah, 100%.
Always wondering about that.
Yep.
Man, so like, what do you got cooking? What are you excited about? You've got so many ventures, from Pursuit to Clearly Acquired to the commercial real estate syndicate that you're doing.
Yep.
Like, how did that all come together? Where do you hope to take that? What are you excited about?
So the gym is like, we're building the leading performance and training gym in Northern Colorado, and I can't fully disclose, but we're currently under contract on 35,000 square feet. Nice. So we're, imagine a training facility led by strength conditioning professionals, dietitians, doctors of physical therapy, which is what we have now, but then just at scale. And now we're bringing in skills coaches, we're bringing in food providers, and like all those types of things to just take it to the next level. If I had to describe it, it would be like a combination between Alpha Land, which is a gym concept, and a D1 training facility. You put those two things together. That's what we want to build with that. What I'm doing with that business is I'm trying to create legacy wealth for the people that have helped us build it. And so the real estate play is a strategy for me to, giving somebody equity in your company instantly gives them a step up in basis, which they have to pay taxes on, and instantly creates a capital gain event for yourself that everybody has to pay on, but there's no money coming out of it. So by way of doing it through a real estate strategy, I can reward those people and say, thank you, give them depreciation, give them equity, and give them buy-in to growing this bigger vision that's there. I'm just the business owner at this point. I'm the guy that kind of moves the money around and helps make the financial decisions. And I only get to participate in the profits because I'm not doing work in the business. And so sometimes that means I'm taking profits out of the business and I'm pushing that back because we need to bring on a new director of member services, or we need to spend more money on marketing, or we need to get flat. And anybody who's working in the business, even if that's my partner, Zach, he pays himself a regular, consistent salary, or in this case, a guaranteed payment because we're an LLC. I don't have any visions of like trying to franchise that or do anything like that. I think that's kind of the end game. And then from there, within that, they'll kind of run it and build it into something greater. I see that now because I just can't see that far in the future. But we're executing on the vision that we set out to do 7 years ago. As it relates to real estate stuff, there's no good deals. It's a red ocean, meaning everybody and their mom is pursuing the same things. And so I had an epiphany. And the epiphany is, what's unique about real estate is you actually don't need to be a good business person. You just need to be good at throwing money around, financial modeling, and then you can hire a third-party property manager. Yeah. So after looking at 2,500 multifamily deals, we offered on 3, got our ass kicked on 1 as we walked away, and lost or participated in 2. I quickly realized that the real opportunity is the fact that there's a $96 trillion wealth transfer that's about to take place as the baby boomers exit. And so the baby boomers have $96 trillion in business, real estate, stocks, assets, essentially. $7 trillion of that is in the form of business. And I can own real estate passively. I can't own my 50-person employee company passively.
Nope.
So I have a little bit of a gun to my head to make a decision about how I'm going to unwind that business. And the crazy statistic is there's about 5.3 million new business entities formed every single year. Mm-hmm. Let's just say 50% of those are SPEs, special purpose entities for trusts or real estate or whatever. So 2.5 million of them are people that are trying to start businesses.
Like they're legit operating businesses, right? It's just not an LLC to
startups,
hold something, right?
Can you guess how many small businesses sell per year?
Not that many.
10,000.
Yeah.
So in the world of marketing, we would call that a starving crowd. So I'm like, there's 5.3 million people that are starting businesses. Only 10,000 businesses sell. And why is that disparity happening? Well, it's because there's not it's a fragmented market. There's not like a real good place where they all come together. And so that, I think, is probably the biggest opportunity. $7 trillion of business is going to transfer. How do you fix this solution? 15 years ago would have been a crazy idea, but it's actually crazier to not try to fix it today, given the circumstance, the opportunity that's ahead of us today. And so what I like about buying a business is not only is there great leverage that you can get from the SBA, but I can also leverage as part of my skill set that other people can't. Like financial bro who comes from private equity, who's really good at underwriting and knows financial modeling, doesn't understand people, processes, and systems, doesn't know how to make an offer, doesn't know how to run ads, doesn't know how to sell out his way out of a paper bag. So, there's 8 core concepts in a business: leadership, finance, operations, growth, product, service, sales, and marketing. He knows 1.
Yeah.
I know 8, right? So that's my competitive advantage. So now it goes from buying a business, goes from being, compared to real estate, a red ocean where everybody and their mom is competing for the same thing, to a bit of a blue ocean. Because maybe I understand a thing or two about HVAC companies, and I can go buy that business, and I can get, like one we're looking at right now, the guy's he'll do about $2 million in revenue. He'll have $923,000 in net income.
That's a great margin.
Sounds about
That's
50.
net.
That's net.
On an HVAC.
Right? So I can buy that business for, call it $5 million, put $500,000 down, maybe even raise some of the money, and step into nearly $1 million of cash flow.
If your life or business are cluttered up with junk right now, then you've got to reach out to one of our sponsors, Hulk Addicts Hauling. Hulk Addicts can come out to your home or business to do anything from removing junk to appliances. Maybe you're demoing or doing construction on a property and you need it cleared out. Maybe you need a big dumpster dropped off that they can roll off later. Make sure to check them out at hulkaddictsjunk.com. They are serving all of Northern Colorado as well as up and down the Front Range. Hey, if you're a business owner and you need to do some renovation in your space or possibly build a building from the ground up, you have to connect with one of our sponsors, Mendel Construction. Mendel Construction is a commercial construction company that's been around since 1997, serving all of Colorado. They can do a small tenant finish all the way up to ground up construction of a new building for your business. Check them out at mendelandcompany.com. That's MENDEL and company.com. Hey, if you're a Christian business owner, you have to check out one of our sponsors, the Foundry Advisory. The Foundry is a Christian peer advisory group where we get together on a monthly basis to discuss everything that's important in our life, our business, our families, and our faith. I'm a member and I love being a part of this group. You've got to check them out at thefoundryadvisory.com. When you go to their website, make sure you check out their Refresh event, which is happening January 11th through the 13th, 2024, up in Estes Park. That can be found at thefoundryadvisory.com/refresh.
Mm-hmm. Can't do that in real estate. That's like just for perspective for your real estate listeners out here, that's like a 25 cap, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't exist today, right? And so that's the opportunity. That's what we're focused on. We've just kind of channeled all of our attention. We're still always open to real estate, but my thesis on real estate has changed from that's not like going and putting together real estate deals is not a way to build wealth. You got to have a vertical source of income, a thing that you do really, really well. That's your thing that nobody else does. Mm-hmm. That creates a lot of money for you. And then parlay that into stable cash producing assets, i.e. real estate, which gives you depreciation and all these other things that go along with it. And so, that's what we're doing right now. We're focused specifically on M&A and more importantly, just powering the next generation of business owners and creating a marketplace where buyers, sellers, investors, debt brokers can all come together and actually transact transparently. Because right now, the best that's out there is like a biz buy sell, which is really like a glorified Craigslist of business, right? And so if we can fix that problem, clearlyacquired.com, then we have a massive, massive opportunity. It's going to be a lot of hard work, but I feel like God has uniquely equipped me with the right people and the timing and the knowledge to do it. So,
and what are you finding about? Because we've got one of our businesses on the market right now. We'll see if it's still there. Hopefully, it's not there when the podcast launches, right? Because we're recording this to launch in a little bit. But what do the business owners not understand that are getting ready to sell their business, or what's some of the disparity that you see? Because we had some real critical conversations. Things like, I think it's worth this. Well, why? Well, I think it's worth this. Sounds like a good number. Well, here's what it's actually worth and why, and here's the modeling, and here's the numbers, and here's the breakdown. What are you seeing out there?
I think the biggest, first off, most people are building a business without a clear exit option for themselves. An exit option doesn't mean selling the business, but it might mean franchising, licensing, putting in a new person to run the company and cash flowing it in perpetuity as a business operator or owner, and could mean selling the business. But if you have a business that's still dependent on you in a big way, then it's a risk to the next buyer, right? And so I'll give you a real world example of that. I have a friend. He recently sold his business for $15 million. He had gotten an offer originally, like in 2020, from a similar company in Denver who wanted to buy that business to get access to his market share, right? A strategic buyer who wanted his market share. The deal fell apart, obviously, from COVID. Fast forward about a year later, he gets an offer from a private equity group. Private equity group offers him $20 million, except it came with a hook. He had to stick around for 5 to 7 years, right? Me as an entrepreneur goes, well, why did they want you to stick around, right? So he has a $5 to $6 million problem on his hand, which was, as much as he tried to tell himself that he wasn't involved in the business, when I asked him what his day-to-day looked like, he said, I'm just doing some bids today. That sounds pretty important.
You're involved in this.
Yeah. I'm just going to go meet with some customers. That sounds pretty important, right? And so when you factor all those things in, the reason that he lost $5 million on the deal was because it wasn't positioned to target all the different types of buyers, right? You have financial buyers, you have strategic buyers, you have industry buyers, and you have owner operators. Mm-hmm. When you get into a certain size and scale and you're making enough money, you're kind of pushing out owner operators and you're just strategic buyers, industry buyers, and financial buyers. And so is the business positioned so that any one of those people could make you an unbelievable offer and you could walk away tomorrow? But if everything's still hinging on you, you're inevitably going to be faced with an earnout. And if you're faced with an earnout, it could be the difference of $5 million or whatnot, And then the second piece of that is just the other like perspective is most people who are selling their business have no idea how the next person's going to buy it. So if it's a business between, call it 1 and 7.5 million, they don't understand how the SBA financing works, how the leverage works. They're not watching interest rates. They're not thinking about seller financing. They're not thinking about all these things. So for example, we're under contract or we're under LOI right now to try to buy a plumbing and HVAC company. We have an operator that's going to come in and operate it. Mm-hmm. There's a plumbing license attached to the owner of the business, but he doesn't want to do seller financing and he wants an employee agreement afterwards. Well, what if we get 2 months into that and you tell me to go kick rocks? So what we're instead going to do is restructure the deal so that he actually has continued ownership in the business. There's holdbacks on how much money he actually gets, contingent on us actually getting the plumbing license in place and getting the other key employees licensed up. And he's going to carry seller financing because if you want to go be a jerk and walk away, then the business blows up, then none of us are getting our money, right? So we're happy to give you some up front, but there has to be shared risk. But the business owner doesn't want to do that. So instead, the business owners wait until they have a gun to their head. Death in the family, sickness, age, something cataclysmic, and now they're selling it at a fire sale.
Yeah.
And so to offset the risk, you have to lower the price, right? And so, preparation is probably the key thing that most business owners are not thinking about as it relates to selling their company. So what we're trying to do with our platform is to, equip them with as much of the right people in their life that they need. Lenders, brokers, advisors, exit consultants, et cetera. AI tools that value the business, but then also cite red flags within their business model to help them understand that like you're the linchpin. And if you're the linchpin, then let's go ahead and discount this business by X, right? And so that's our biggest equation that we're trying to solve for right now.
I love it. Now, I've talked to a lot of people that, they want to buy a business. They've got some great experience in marketing, sales. Maybe they worked for a company. They don't want to start something from the ground up. And they see all these businesses for sale. They're on the biz, buy, sell site. They go, I can't do that. They think it's too difficult. What are some misconceptions that you see with buyers? Or what would you say to somebody that's thinking of buying a business?
It's kind of like buying a house. If you're going to go buy a house, what would be the first thing that you need to figure out?
You got to figure the financing. Yeah. Well, people go to the realtor first. They forget to go to the lender. I always say go to the lender.
Yeah, they go to the lender, but they call the realtor, and the realtor says what?
Go to the lender.
Right. Why? Because why?
Don't spend my time until I know that you got to be qualified.
So there's a reason that you don't really see buyer's representation in the world of business brokering or M&A brokering is because you get a lot of those, right? It's even worse than real estate. And it's, less straight up, but people don't realize you can kind of get pre-qualified. Like if you have an idea of here's how much money I can put down and or I have some partners in place that can provide the money and I'll be the operator. And so with that, I kind of know how much leverage I can get. And then you can take that leverage number plus maybe a potential deal structure like 20% or 50% seller financing. And you can kind of put that picture together. Now you have a better idea of like what strike price can I go after? But if you're just looking at things because it looks fun, or you're looking at things because you feel like you have some expertise without really understanding if you can break it down, the very first question that you're going to get is, awesome, talk to me more about your financing and like how you plan to take the business down, which is one of the first questions I ask when people inquire about one of your businesses, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, awesome, let's jump on a call. I really want to understand how you're going to take the business down. And then they ghost me.
They got nothing.
Yeah. So it's like, stop wasting everybody's time, right? So instead they're shopping for the business based off of like what they think they can afford in their head instead of what they can actually afford.
Yeah.
So you're never going to get it done. But there's a good book out there called Buy, Then Build by a guy named Walker Double. Mm-hmm. And the book's all about that whole process of who's a good fit. Generally if you're like mid-career professional with a reasonable amount of experience, you can kind of step into being a CEO and step into cash flow. Like that's the perfect type of person to go buy a business.
Love it. What kind of businesses do you have coming up? Like what's in the pipe right now?
In terms of what we're selling, or
yeah.
So we got Your Business, which is a direct to consumer product, patented product called Pirate Patch. Check it out. Piratepatch.com. We have 3 urgent cares in a portfolio in New Mexico that we're selling. We got a media company that we're getting ready to take to the market. We got an HVAC company that we're getting ready to take to the market. And then we have a pretty sizable commercial concrete company that we're getting ready to take to the market. So in total, it's like something like $50 million in total market value. But what people don't like, sounds great, super sexy. You can make a lot of money, but it takes sometimes 1 to 2 years to sell one of those businesses. So
yeah, you got quite a bit of pipeline, and a lot of ways that deal can fall apart, right? From conversation to close to transfer. There's so many fallouts there.
100%. So it's not as black and white as maybe real estate is. Hence why it's kind of a black hole and fragmented, and most people don't want to fix it, which is where I see the opportunity to try to make it better. Because it's a massive opportunity, and businesses are trading hands every single year, or they're just closing their doors and going out of business.
Well, I was going to say with the millions of people and businesses that are going to transfer, you see a lot of them just close down. They don't know what to do. They really don't have anything to sell. It's not packaged, and you just see them shutting it down and closing a mom and pop shop 40, 50 years. They're just done.
Yep.
Man.
Yeah. So it happens all the time. Now, granted, like the vein that we're playing in is like that, call it $1 to $10 million realm. And then you got Main Street business that's, south of $1 million. We try to stay away from things that are really like geographically hamstrung. Mm-hmm. Like I'm a dance studio in downtown Windsor. It's like, that's a really specific type of operator. You're doing like $200,000 a year. It takes just as much work for me to try to sell that business versus like a commercial concrete company doing $15 million a year. They're covering the whole state. It's like, let's go sell that business. It takes just as much work.
Yeah.
It's like 1,000 times X the return, for your effort.
Love it. Dude, I feel like I could sit here for hours and talk business with you. A couple of the things that I really admire about you is your faith and how you bring that to the marketplace and how you integrate that into everything that you do and just how you're an awesome family man. So I'd love to hear your love story about how you met your wife. But I'd love to just share how your growth and your faith plays into everything that you do.
It's a perspective shift for me. I mean, in terms of faith, I think a lot of people wrestle with the question of like, what's my purpose here? Why am I here? And when you realize that your purpose here is to honor God always, in all ways, the way that you do anything changes. The way that I love my wife, the way that I love my kids, the way that I treat my employees or my business partners, the way that I take care of my body. None of it actually belongs to me. I'm just a steward of the gifts that have been given to me. And I don't think people look at their life that way at all. They think that it belongs to them. And so as soon as I got clear that nothing belongs to me, then I all of a sudden had a different responsibility in how I managed my relationships, my faith, because they're all intertwined. If God put me here, He gave me this opportunity to have these friends, to come on these podcasts, to do these things, and I'm not executing, then I'm not honoring God always, in all ways. Mm-hmm. There's like 7 key pillars in any person's life. They have their spiritual life, their faith. They have their family. They have their physical health. They have their finances. They have their business or their career. They have their social life, their friendships, and they have their intellectual growth, their mind, mm-hmm. right? And all of those things interact with one another. So I became kind of obsessed with, we all know that person who's an incredibly successful entrepreneur who's been divorced multiple times.
Yes.
Or their kids hate them. Or stupid, sick physique, roller coaster dating life, right? And it's like, you can't have one without the other. Truly, to be a great leader, the first person who you lead is yourself. And so there's a lot of people who are good leaders, but they're not great because the way they handle their business in the other area of their life is terrible. And so until you get clear and you understand that it all influences each other, right? Then you're going to really struggle to find like a balance or a peace. Zig Ziglar was actually the one that kind of came up with this wheel of life concept. And it's described like a wheel. And so if one area of your life is flat, your life's going to feel a little lopsided rolling down the hill. And so it's about, man, you got to have goals in every area of aspect of those 7 pillars. And you have to be taking inventory, on those areas. Are you loving your family the way that you're supposed to? Or is your business stealing from your family? Right. And so that's kind of like the premise that I work from. And then everything in the middle of that, you know, I think in Costa Rica, they call it plan de vida. In Japan, they call it ikigai, which is what is the reason with which I get up in the morning every single day? That's purpose. And if you look at all these blue zones about across the globe where you see more centurions, people who are living to be 100 years old, you realize that the core things that they are doing in their life is they are grounded in faith. They're part of a faith community. They believe in a higher power. They believe in God. They're surrounded by family, right? They take care of their physical health. They walk or they work every single day. They have close relationships with their friends and family, right? Financially, they're not living beyond their means, right? And if worst case scenario, they live off the land, they can get it themselves, right? They're constantly being stimulated intellectually, right? And so when you look at those things and you realize that they're all waking up with purpose and they're all fulfilling all those 7 categories of goal, you go, maybe there's something to this, right? Because for me, I have a lot of things, as we've talked about on this pod, that I want to do. But if I get sick, I get divorced, I lose the relationship with my kids, I'm not going to be able to go focus on these other things that I want to do. So it's a weird thing of like a short-term sacrifice to make sure that you're present with the other people in your life, or you're taking care of your health in order to play the long game, because your life is short, but it's longer than you anticipate it to be. So that's just my take on it.
And how do you tactically and practically do that, right? Because you talk about that concept. It makes a lot of sense, right? Yep. But then it's like, man, you only have so much time in a day. So how do you structure your day? Because I think you're really good at that. I mean, you shared that with me at some point, like from wake up to what you do and when you're. I mean, break that down. What kind of tidbits and wisdom would you share with somebody checking into this? That like they know they need to do it, they understand that, they're ready to do it. It's just overwhelming, right? There's so many commitments, so many places pulling you.
It's not overwhelming. It's a lack of intent. Mm-hmm. So most people will get started by just rolling into their day and just like getting hit on the chin with whatever happens, right? But how the day starts is how the day goes, you know? So I wake up in the morning, you know, I sometimes wake up between 4 and 5. A day like today, I slept until like 5:45 because it was a day of rest. I didn't have to get up and train in the morning, right? But I did get up, and then the first thing I did is I walked. And while I walked, I prayed, I thought, I meditated for an hour. So I'm not walking because I want to lose weight. I'm walking because there's physical long-term benefits, but it's a time for me to set my day up and take it in and distill and pray. Thank God. You know, goals and gratitudes are the 2 things that'll change your life. Yeah. So every day I'm starting with something for my physical health, something for my spiritual health, something for my intellectual growth and health. And so if I can get those 3 things done in the beginning of the day, man, I'm already winning a large portion of the day. Then I go jump into my business. Then I come home in the evening and I hang out with my family, right? I get my social interaction from the people that I work with, the people that I do business with. That's that, right? And then intellectually, like I'm not doing easy things, right? So it challenges me. But I do regularly take an inventory on those 7 categories. And it's really just like, how am I doing in this area in my faith? Do I have a goal? Is there something I'm working on or growing? Am I falling short? Man, I haven't really taken my wife on a date in like months, you know? It's like, I need to check in on that. But people let these things crop up and then all of a sudden, you know, their wife wants a divorce or something, like, oh, I didn't see it coming.
Didn't see it coming. Yeah.
How do you not see it coming? Or it's just like being overweight. Like you didn't wake up one day and oh my gosh, I gained 60 pounds. Like that's not how that works, right? It comes on slowly, but people never stop and take inventory. And so if you can regularly take inventory on those things and actually reflect on them, then you can take action on them. But if you're just oblivious to what's going on in your life, then you get what you get and you don't throw a fit.
Yeah. Do you give those things like a number? Do you give them a 1 to 10, or do you just take a check? Like how am I doing?
Yeah, it's less like structured than that. You know, you could probably go and set a goal, right? But you know, those can go to the extreme too. The check that I use is this stealing from the other parts of my life? There might be a season, right, where you're like, hey, I'm putting in 12-hour days. But if that season turns into a year, you got a problem, right? So if you're not checking in on that and making sure you're pulling the reins in a little bit, you're going to you're going to burn out your family, right? Or you're going to burn yourself out or whatever it might be. And so, yeah, I think just a regular check, at least once a week, right? Like, how am I doing?
Yeah.
You can do it daily to start because I think it just kind of builds that habit. But I literally just go, faith. Hey, how am I doing? Ask God some questions. Am I being intentional? Am I putting work into this? Am I reading my Bible? Am I getting up and making prayer time? Am I going to my men's group? Am I doing all these things? Because if I'm not, then maybe that's why I'm feeling kind of anxious, you know?
I love it, man. Dude, thank you for coming on and sharing all this wisdom. I want to close up and I want to hear about your love story with your wife, because you guys were here for couples night.
Yep.
Emily was on the podcast. I know you had your wife on the podcast, and that was an awesome episode. But just talk about that dynamic of being an entrepreneur, being married, how you balance all of those things. Because Emily and we got on here and had an episode, and it was interesting where that went. But like, just share that story and just some advice you have for, call it the other side of the equation.
Yeah.
But like, we're crazy entrepreneurs, man.
Yeah. My wife always says I remind her a lot of her dad, and he's a serial entrepreneur. Similar in a lot of ways, but not exactly the same. But we met in college because when I played school in New Mexico, part of the reason why I transferred to Colorado is because at the time I was dating a girl long distance from high school there. And when I got there, needless to say, like I've already alluded to, we were on totally different pages. So she was a sorority girl. Mom and dad were paying for her to go to school. Thursday through Sunday, she wanted to go party. I'm like, I'm trying to make the team. If I don't make the team, like this ain't going to happen. So it was very eye-opening once we were there to realize that we were just going different directions in our life. And she's an awesome person. I've never talked to her since then, but I couldn't imagine her not hopefully finding what she needed. But it was the best thing that happened to me, because 6 months later, my teammate and roommate from New Mexico was getting married to the woman he met in New Mexico. And they were getting married in Loveland, Colorado, which was 45 minutes north from where I was at in Boulder, Colorado. Go Buffs. I'm a Buff for life. Neon Dion, baby.
Oh, man, we got to stop this right now. Hold on, Joey.
And so at his wedding, for the first time, I met his sister. So the joke was always like, I knew you had sisters. It didn't register that you had like sisters. Like really good looking sisters. And it was instantaneous, man. The moment I saw her, I just felt like I just needed to know her. And then the more I got to know her, the more that I wanted to just be around her constantly. So I remember we were maybe had a few too many drinks before the bachelor party. And I just told her brother, like, hey man, I think I'm really into your sister. Can I take her on a date? And he says, I'd rather have you than some jerk who I don't know. Because we had been roommates together. So you
guys knew each other.
He knew my character. I actually knew her dad and him long before that. And so, yeah, we just hit it off, and the rest is kind of history. That was 18 years ago. We've been married for 14. We got 2 beautiful daughters. She's had to grow along the way just in, because she grew up around that roller coaster of uncertainty that like, she didn't think her life was going to be like that. And then she marries me, and I'm a visionary guy, right? So I got big vision, big ideas. And over the years, she had to kind of learn that just because I talk about something, it's like tossing around this magic ball. It doesn't mean that I'm just like mortgaged our house and, quit my job and decided to go do this thing. It's just how I process, right? And then I distill it down until I have a lot of clarity around what we are going to go do. Yep. But at the same time, I stuck it out. Doing the marketing thing for a long time is an incredible opportunity. I mean, we scaled that company from 0 to 100 million, 600 employees, a couple acquisitions. I was leading strategy, and I would show up every day, and I just felt like a part of my soul was dying. Yeah. And it had nothing to do with them, but at a certain point in an organization, this is how I always explain it to people. Imagine you can play all the instruments. You can write music, you can sing, you can do all that. And I'm like, Matt, that's cool, man. We just need you to play bass guitar, and we're only going to do cover songs. Okay, I can do that, but like for so long before the creative part of your brain and the thing that lights you up starts to fizzle out and die.
Get stifled, yeah.
And so I needed to go to kind of take the leap. And so she could see about this about every 90 days, maybe, and sometimes I could push it to 6 months, where I would just come home and just like, I can't do this anymore. And it's like, dude, I was making like almost $300,000 a year. I had equity in this company. Like any concern that you have about not quitting your job right now, I've had it times 10, right? Like, how do you go make up $300,000 in income if you quit your job? And the answer is you spend 1 to 2 years getting your life in order, getting your house in order, and preparing to take that entrepreneurial leap. And so my wife finally just got to a point where she could see I was so unhappy that it was more important for her to let me go do it and fail than it was for her to keep hanging on to the security, because at the end of the day, she wasn't getting the most from me. I was just doing what I was supposed to be doing, but I really wasn't lit up and excited and on fire. And I'm busier now than I've ever been, but she gets more time with me. She gets more of my attention. I'm more energized because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And when she kind of got past that personally, it made everything that I was doing easier. And so it's, it's no surprise that like who you marry directly impacts the kind of success and kind of life that you're going to have, because that ultimately becomes your best friend. And there's that saying that your 5 closest friends dictate your future. She is my only like best friend. Like you and I are tight, but like we're never going to be that tight. Just like
we're not that tight.
Yeah. It's never going to be like that. You know what I mean? And so she knows all my deepest and darkest secrets. And so if she's not on board because I love her so much, then I can't actually go be free. I can't play with reckless abandonment, right? And in the sports analogy, football, as soon as you start tiptoeing and playing scared, you're going to get crushed. You're going to get wrecked, right? You're going to get hurt. And so in order to be clear-headed, because your brain is 32% smarter in a positive state of mind. And so most people are focused on not losing instead of playing to win. And your significant other plays a big part in whether or not you can play to win versus thinking about not losing.
Did you guys need to learn that as a couple? Was that always there? Did she know that because of the experience? Because I asked that. I meet with entrepreneurs where wife or sig other spouse, they're not all the way in, and they're pulling that entrepreneur down and pulling them away, and they feel torn.
Yep.
I can't. They don't want the risk, and maybe they don't understand the personality dynamic. But how did you guys get to that point where you can both confidently say that? Because I've seen you both confidently say that.
Yeah. It's just time. I mean, that was it. I mean, she's a great business person, but I wouldn't say she's like purebred entrepreneur in the sense that like, we'll just go figure it out. She's a lot more calculated. But as you get smarter and you learn how to take calculated risk, your confidence goes up. It's like anything, right? It's like back to the skateboarding analogy, right? Yeah. You start with the ollie, and all of a sudden you go for the kick flip, then you go for the heel flip, then you go for the 360, right? You didn't just start with 360 flips. You started with an ollie, right? And so the same thing is she had to build that up. And there's a certain point where she was ready to go do that. And so it just took time. And then taking, small risks, small wins, and then I started to side hustles and real estate and like doing all these things while we had a main source of income. And then success leaves clues, right? So then she was like, oh, okay, like I think we can probably figure this out. And then we did have enough cash flow income to kind of make that transition. If we didn't have kids, we didn't have a mortgage, cars, like all those things, I probably just would have pulled the ripcord like way sooner. Mm-hmm. But, I want to give my family a good life and a comfortable life. And I'm willing to take on that stress and that burden to make that happen. So I had to delay a little gratification. But at the same time, if I didn't go through all those things, I didn't stay in that career and get those opportunities that I did and see other people make those mistakes, I don't think I would be as successful as I am right now. So it's a dichotomy of like, you can't have one without the other. Like you have to go through those things in order to do it. You have to start with the ollie before you can 360 flip, right? Yeah. And so, that's my advice. I think too that most people, at least in my position, like mid-career professionals, call it in their 30s, that are in a good job but want to take the leap, start with something that you can build on the side and get a rolling start is probably the best way to make the leap.
Yeah, and then I think your personality dynamic plays a lot into that. Actually, like I would have pulled the ripcord, right? Like you're wired like that. Just jump. There's no safety net. Burn the boats. Go.
Yep.
You got to consider the other dynamic of the spouse, because Emily and I are totally opposite. You and Casey totally opposite the way I think that you guys are wired, from what I remember.
Yep.
What other kind of quick tidbits would you give in terms of that mid-career professional getting that side hustle? What are some of maybe the metrics or the keystones they've got to think about as they start? First, it's just start it, right? Like just start it.
I think people make it way too complicated. They don't realize how much trust plays a key role in being able to start a business, right? And so, let's say you work in marketing and you want to go start your own marketing thing, like just pulling the ripcord and going and trying to start a marketing agency, like you could, right? Or what you could do is you could just go and do it for a couple of people who know, like, and trust you, and then convert that into a review, right? Because the first trust is built on the back of 4 things: integrity, intent, capability, and results. And so when you first get started, people don't really know your results. They're not sure if you're totally capable, but they might know your integrity and your intent. And so if you offer the service for them for free or at a discount, with the contingency of hey, they'll write you a review, then you can take the review and now you can show people that you're capable and you can deliver on the results. Yeah. And then now you've closed the trust equation, right? And then you do that 10 times and then you use that to go get referrals from them. And now all of a sudden you've done it 20 times and now you've got 20 trusted reviews that you can then leverage through paid media to then take the leap. You got the revenue, the customers, the clients, like everything that you need in order to be successful. That's going to probably take you a year or maybe a little bit longer. Like I said, we grossly overestimate what we can do in a year. Once you've completed that, then you're ready to go, But if you're not willing to do that work or put in those extra hours outside of your day job, then you're not ready to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. Because when the toilet floods and nobody else is there to fix it, it's you who's fixing it, right? When there's no revenue coming in, you're fixing it. When you can't pay the employees that month, it's coming out of your savings account.
Oh yeah.
And if you're not ready for that type of responsibility as a leader, then you ain't ready to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And we talked about that, right? Like everything that we're investing in right now, we talked about that cash position, right? Cash pour right now. We're pouring a lot. You're pouring a lot into what you're doing. I'm pouring a lot into what I'm doing. And that's scary as hell.
It's uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable. It's super scary. There's uncertainty with it, but it's like, man, if we don't do this, you're always going to sit there and wonder.
100%.
Yeah. Hey, you came in to the studio here. We got you really jacked up on coffee.
Yep.
And you picked your favorite color off the wall. We have our big color wall outside here. And we close out every episode reading the statement you want to leave with the world when you leave it. And you wrote something down that you wanted to explain a little bit too after you read it. So take it away.
So this comes from Ecclesiastes, and it's my favorite book in the Bible because the king who it was supposedly about or written for was the wealthiest king ever. Like if you look at the richest man in the world, they couldn't touch this king. And he literally sampled and tried to the fullest everything that this world has to offer. And at the end of all of those roads, he realized it was a dead end. And so the whole book is him wrestling with the reality that everything in this life is meaningless. And the quote I put is meaningless, utterly meaningless. What do people gain from all their labors at which they toil under the sun? And the concept is that if this is all there is, then everything in our life is meaningless. But if you have a kingdom perspective, that life extends beyond this, and you realize that everything you do, your purpose is to honor God always in all ways, then nothing you do under the sun is meaningless. Yeah. And so, if you haven't read that book, highly encourage it.
Samson, honor to have you on, man.
Thanks, bro.
Hey, if you're a faith-based father and you have a son who is entering into adolescence and manhood, you've got to check out an experience that we have June 2024. It is the father-son hike of a lifetime on the Camino de Santiago in Spain. I'm going to be taking a group of men and their sons over to Spain to hike some of the most beautiful scenery through northern Spain on the Camino de Santiago. We're going to hike 6 days, 70 miles, 200,000 steps, and have completely disconnected, unplugged, uninterrupted time with our sons. We are going to grow and bond and deepen our relationships with our sons through some very intentionally curated adventures, challenges, and experiences. And we're going to do so in the company of other faith-based men who have the same desire to grow and deepen their story with their son. If you're interested in this adventure with us, go to mattshoup.com, click the Go to Spain button, and check out the father-son hike of a lifetime.